have to say that when I started Recreators, I was slightly concerned. I mean, characters coming from another world, fantasy intersecting with ours, they're all cool concepts, but they've been done to death in past years and not exactly well. But boy was I in for a shock, because this story isn't really a characters from another world story. Sure, it's got action and adventure, it's got fantasy, it's got sci-fi, it's got all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, Recreators is a love letter to fiction and authors everywhere, and boy do I adore it. Welcome, welcome one and all. I am Coriander Sten, and today I bring you a review of Recreators. Plot-wise, yes, Recreators does begin where so many anime have before, but the differences are apparent almost immediately. Yes, our character Sota is a high school student in Japan, and yes, he manages to accidentally summon a girl from another world into his bedroom. And that's where the similarities end. As much as this show is already showing promise and interest by the end of episode 1, it's episode 2 that really highlights what the meat of this show truly is, and why it's so different from any other show like it. Rather, why there aren't really any other shows like it. The only stories that I can come up with that really capture some of the similar themes and essence are the Ink World novels by Cornelia Funke. And obviously they're not even anime, which is going to make coming up with alternate anime recommendations a bit of a problem for me, but I'll get to that later. So for right now, what is it that the second episode does that stands out so much? Well, two things. First, we're introduced to the creator of Celestia. Who is Celestia? Oh yeah, I should backtrack a second. Basically, the story begins with our high school protagonist Sota watching an episode of an anime he enjoys. And then all of a sudden he's inside the anime. And after the first of the stunning fight scenes that this show provides us with, we end up back in his room again, but he's brought someone with him. But the sword-wielding protagonist Celestia isn't the only fictional character being brought into this world. By the end of episode 1, we're introduced to two other characters. One is Meteora, a librarian from the video game A Valken of Reminisce, and the other is a mysterious woman who the characters refer to only as the military uniform princess. Her name is Altair, and I feel like I can use it without spoilers, so I'm just going to do that, but my point by introducing her by her title is that they know so little about her that they don't even have a name to call her. Anyway, in episode 2, two major things transpire that really clue us into what this show is truly about. First, Celestia meets her creator, Matsubara, who's the guy who wrote her original novels. And it's really interesting to watch him and her interact and him coming to realize that yes, this is his character alive and before him. What I love about this series is that when it introduces the creators, it doesn't feel the need to romanticize them or build them to conform to anime tropes. Rather, these are people who you could really see as the creators of this sorts of stories. The writers of Recreators really go above and beyond trying to make these people feel, well, like people. Not like characters, not like epic adventures, not like drama queens, but like normal, everyday, ordinary people. And it's something I really commend them for. The second thing to happen in episode 2 is that we're introduced to yet another character creation. That is Magical Slayer Mamika. The main character of Magical Slayer Mamika, Mamika Kirameki, is a two-dimensional magical girl character from a kids show. And that's what makes her so damn interesting. She starts attacking the main characters and doesn't even realize that destruction, rubble, and bloodshed is an option because that's not a thing in her childish show. The horror of her realizing that she's actually harmed someone and the shock she goes through when she sees the results in the rubble all around Celestia is really, really fascinating to watch and gives us a clue about how much this show is going to delve into the psychologies of its characters. I can place the characters, or at least the types of characters that we're seeing for most of the creations. Mamika is a generic magical girl. Maybe you could pin her on Sakura from Cardcaptor Sakura, or even perhaps Snow White from Magical Girl Raising Project, but even that's pushing it a little bit. Meteora is an NPC librarian from a JRPG, with both tactical specs and personality traits that leave her highly reminiscent of Robin from Fire Emblem Awakening. Yuya from Exclusive Underground Dark Knight feels like he just stepped right out of the Port Mafia from Bungo Stray Dogs. Megane is just as much a psychotic human lover as Izaya Orihara from Durarara, and Alisteria February from Alisteria the Scarlet feels like Saber from the Fate series if she was actually the protagonist of Berserk. I could go on, but the idea is pretty crystal clear, I'm sure, which is that all of these characters can be traced back to traditional sources within anime and manga, and within the cultures that surround them, and games too, of course. But the fact that they're traditional characters actually works in this series' favor, since it's really fascinating to see what sort of combinations they'll make when they're thrust into the real world and have to interact with each other, as well as with the people who created them and who caused them to suffer. And that's what really does it for me in this show, the creators, and their relationships with their creations. Each relationship between creator and creation is fascinating and unique. Each creator has their own philosophy for their work or why they care about it, and it's so interesting to watch the creations try to grapple with those philosophies. Sometimes a philosophy is big and grand. Creators need to leave something of themselves behind, a legacy that they're creating with their work. Sometimes the creators are too focused on deadlines and on getting things done to have any other grander need for the story. And sometimes the creator just does what they do to shock the audience and make it entertaining. And have to defend the reasons they make their characters suffer is just legitimately to cause entertainment value. At the end of the day, however, all of the creators love their creations. All of the creators care about their creations and are invested in their creations, even if that investment often leads to the creations suffering. And that's what we get to when we get to the heart of this story, that it is a love letter to creators and to how much they love their work. This is a story that's being put together by anime writers and anime creators, and there's no way in hell this isn't intentional. It's the creators saying that they love what they do. Oh, they show off how grueling it can be and how exhausting, but it's also showing off how much the creators just love to write and how much building your own story can be a satisfying thing. There's a lot going on in this story, from a good versus evil battle to Altair's backstory to all the stuff with our protagonist Sota, but at the end of the day, this theme of writers and their creations and what it means to be a writer runs throughout the story, and the final episode really brings us back to that and focuses the audience's attention on it, making it clear that this is the true thing that the creators want you to take away from recreators. Incidentally, if you want to hear more of their commentary on both anime writing in general and recreators' creation in specific, check out the recap episode halfway through the series. Usually I just skip those things, but oh my god, was it hilarious. The fourth wall doesn't exist, Meteora is amazing, and damn, this is one you actually should check out. Besides, in what other recap episodes do you come across lines like this?
水色の煙くじゃらにしか見えない。まるでモップの化身である。作画スタッフの怨嗟を代弁すれば、彼らへの嫌がらせを煮詰めて固めたようなこのデザインは正気を疑う。
That said, there's one big thing in Recreators I haven't talked about at all yet, and that's a shame because Altair is freaking awesome. Main antagonist Altair is one of the best antagonists I've ever seen. She's thoughtfully created and well developed, and she's also such a mystery. For the first several episodes you don't even have a name for her, although she's a constant threatening presence. At some point, Recreators becomes a mind game battle between her and Meteora, and I just love that sort of foil relationship thing. Even though the two aren't particularly closely connected, it's still fascinating to watch them both strategize back and forth. It works really well because of how well written Recreators is, how smart it is, and how well established the philosophies of all of the characters are. Also, I want to mention Megane, who doesn't ever take a side, makes a really interesting counternote to the plot as well, since she acts as the sort of Joker wildcard. My favorite character other than Altair has gotta be Meteora, although that might just be because I love snarky characters, tacticians, and magic users, so Meteora basically checks all my boxes. But there's such a wide range of characters from all sorts of genres that you're bound to find one that you connect with just as well, and they're all so well written and enjoyable. Honestly, I really want people to go and make the source material that these characters came from. From the little we hear about them in the shows, I would love to read a manga of Code of Babylon, and I would love to play through a Vulcan of Reminisce, or watch, well, basically all of these shows. But there's one more character that I really need to touch on, and that is our protagonist, Sota. He's a generic high school character who you're supposed to latch onto, or at least that's what you think going in, but he's actually exactly not. In fact, not only does he have a distinct personality and past, and not only are those things connected to the plot of the series, but after learning about his backstory and seeing his development and who he is as a person, I don't think there's anyone who's gonna really want to fully relate to this kid. And that's awesome. I love that they turned the blank slate protagonist on his head, giving him a personality that makes you not want to relate to him because, well, I'm not going to spoil it, and it's not that he's a terrible person or anything, but there are just certain things that no one wants to claim as their own. And the fact that he does have to claim them is what makes him such a good and well-written character, and not at all like the generic blank slate I originally thought he was going to be. Animation-wise, the character designs are really cool, the fight scenes were gorgeous and very precise. Players' powers and the way that the fictional worlds dissolved into ours looked especially cool. Soundtrack-wise, it's a Sarano Hiroyuki soundtrack. What else is there to say? It's absolutely gorgeous, and I've been looping song after song from it for, well, ever since it came out. Hell, this might even be my favorite Sarano Hiroyuki soundtrack. I might even like it better than the soundtrack for All I Know Is Zero, and that's saying a lot. This is also the best show that his work has ever been attached to, at least in my opinion. I especially want to draw attention to this song Layers, which is just fabulous and always makes for an epic fight scene. Seriously, before the soundtrack came out, I was re-looping the fight scenes, not so much to watch them, although they are awesome, but just to hear Layers over and over again for the few minutes that it was on screen. And Sarano Hiroyuki also composed both openings, which should be enough to tell you that they are absolutely perfect. Check this out! I'm screaming something to you, whatever something to me. I'm screaming something to you. Gravity Wall is easily one of the best openings I've ever seen, and certainly the best opening of this year. Or at least that's what I thought until the second opening, Shout, aired. Seriously, that might honestly be my favorite anime opening of all time. To sum up, I absolutely love Recreators, which you've probably figured out by now. It's a story with fascinating takes on old and traditional characters and themes. It has an interesting, cool, and original plot of its own. And it really has a solid message that continues throughout and leaves you feeling wonderful after you've finished it, and also heartbroken because it's over, but you know, I'm not bitter or anything. It's a love letter to fiction and to the act of writing and story creation, and as an English major with a focus in creative writing, I just love that. It's a must-see for anyone else who loves stories, or words, or wants to be a writer in their own right. And for that reason, I give Recreators a rating of 5 out of 5 stars. It's earned it. Now then, alternate anime recommendation time. Ah yes, the hardest part of this review. The first one at least is pretty easy. And that is Fate Zero, for another story about characters from all over history and legend being brought into a single place to do battle for the sake of, well, in this case a wish rather than the world, but considering how much damage there is, it might as well be the world. If you're looking for another story that takes traditional isekai or otherworld tropes and spins them around into a new and wonderful story with depth and imagination, I'm going to point you toward a very, very different story, which is the 12 Kingdoms. And finally, my third rec is going to be a blind one, and that is for Black Lagoon, since it and Recreators shares, what else, but a creator. I've really got to go watch that. And speaking of things to watch, if you need other things to watch, why not head over to my channel and check out some of my other videos. Please like and subscribe, letting me know what you think, and let me know down in the comments what you think of this video or of Recreators as a whole. This is Coriander Stone, and I thank you for watching.